Now that you have your store, you're probably excited to start designing it and selling it. Creating websites using these kinds of tools is a lot of fun because all the technical stuff is done for you. All you need to worry about is choosing the themes that you like the look of, deciding what colors to use, etc. etc. But don't get too carried away. While it's true that you can have a lot of fun here, remember that the end objective is to sell more items. And that means you need to think carefully about the layout and design of your site. And specifically, you need to make sure that it's designed in a way that will encourage sales. This in turn comes down to a number of consideration and design choices. If you were the manager of a high street store or a supermarket, then a big part of your job would be to decide how to lay out all of the products in that store so that they would sell optimally. This means getting people to walk through specific aisles in order to find the best sellers, thereby being exposed to other products they might be interested in but hadn't considered. In other words, the way you set out a brick and mortar store can end up having a big impact on the number of sales you make, and this comes down to basic psychology. Of course, there aren't quite as many factors for you to consider if you're going to be selling products online, but there are still some ways that you can influence the decisions of your buyers. Now, here are just a few things to keep in mind. One very important consideration for your store is the security and the barriers to sale. Remember, right at the start of the series, we discussed the growth of e-commerce and why it hasn't already grown beyond brick and mortar sales. The reason? Well, people are still concerned about spending money online. If you want to sell to the broadest range of people possible, you need to ensure your site looks official and trustworthy. This is why it's so important to use a professional looking design and to create a professional looking brand with a high quality logo. Something as simple as a low resolution image, a typo, or copyright 2010 can make your website look less trustworthy and cause people to leave. Another way to overcome this barrier to sale is to let people leave reviews on your store. This is something many people will be nervous to do, seeing as it can potentially mean people end up leaving bad reviews. But overall, letting people leave reviews means your customers can see other people have bought from you and received your products. If you respond to negative reviews, this will also reassure your customers that you're listening and that you care about what they have to say. Another barrier to sale is the time and effort involved in making a purchase. Believe it or not, this is actually a big deal, and surveys show that people are much less likely to buy from a store if they need to set up an account first. If you want to sell as much as possible, then, you need to make the process of buying from you as streamlined and simple as possible. Amazon does this incredibly well with its buy with one click system, but even if you were to mimic something like this for your site, your visitors might still be required to create an account the first time they shopped with you, which could mean having to input their card details, their delivery address, etc., etc. Again, try to make all this as simple as possible to make sure it isn't off-putting for your visitors. For example, one thing you can do is to use PayPal to handle your checkout process. This can help people feel more secure shopping from your site. They don't have to input their details. And it makes it a lot easier for them to buy from you. POS stands for point of sale, and it's a concept that relates to the barrier to sale that we were just talking about. In a high street store, you'll often find something called point of sale display. This is a display that will promote and sell a cheap product while people are waiting in the queue. You've no doubt encountered these before, and that's because they work. The thing to understand is that when someone has made the decision to buy from you, they will already have made that important psychological step that turns them into a prospective buyer. Prior to this point, they're still umming and ahhing about whether they want to bother setting up an account or whether they want the guilt of spending money. Once they're checked out, they've already gone through the hard bit. Convincing someone to add something small to their order now is actually relatively easy and means you can increase your profits further. Of course, you don't have a queue online, so your point of sale is the checkout page. That's why you'll often find sites offering to add extras to your order, things like gift wrapping for a small fee. On an unrelated note, you also need to think carefully about the color scheme and palette of your e-commerce site design. What's key to understand here is that different colors can have different effects on your customers. For example, the colors red and orange actually make people feel slightly more impatient and have even been shown to elevate the heart rate. People very often find red color schemes somewhat uncomfortable, and this can be used to your advantage. For example, this is actually the reason that a lot of fast food joints are red or orange in their color scheme. The uncomfortable color palette means that people don't quite feel comfortable to spend a long time eating, and this means that the store can accommodate a higher turnover of customers and make more profit as a result. And likewise, it turns out that if a buy now button is red, it becomes more likely to be clicked more regularly. Conversely, though, if you want people to take their time to explore your site in a sort of more leisurely manner, then you need to make sure that you use cool and relaxing colors, like blues. Also important is to make sure that your color scheme allows you to use contrast. In other words, you need to avoid making your color palette too bright and your layout too busy. If you do that, it'll be impossible to draw attention to anything. Your aim is to make sure you can control the attention of your visitors and to get them to look at the products you're interested in selling. If everything is red and moving, then people won't know where they should be looking.